Alright, so the goal for us in this video is to learn a software which once upon a time was considered a very important software used for managing requirements. However, nowadays, with most projects moving towards agile, the use of this software has drastically diminished. So I consider this video as highly optional, more like a bonus video, more like an FYI kind of a thing for you to learn and understand. However, don't really expect you to be using this software anytime soon or in the future as well. So with that said, let's explore this tool, which is Enterprise Architect. This software is made by Sparks Systems, and this tool is a one-stop shop where I can create or enter my requirements, where I can enter my use cases. So normally we either have an approach where we write requirements, or we have an approach where we end up writing use cases. So this tool allows me to either write requirements, write use cases. On top of it, it also allows me to add my UML diagrams along with this. So in the same project or in the same example in this tool, we are going to learn both the versions on how to enter requirements as well as how to create use cases. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to close the windows that we don't want to be using. So I'm going to be closing the windows for pan and zoom. I want to close notes. I want to close properties. So all I want in this is I want to have the toolbox. I want to have the project browser. So the very first thing I want to be doing is I want to create a new project. And I want to give the name of the project as online banking. And let's say I want to create that on my desktop and I click on save. So the very first thing I just did is I set up a new project. Now, the moment I set up the project, it asks me and it wants to give me some ready-made default templates. It's asking me, do I want to create my project? Do I want to have a requirements approach? Do I want to have a use case approach? And had I selected either of these, it would have given me some ready-made templates. However, I want to show you how to customize a project and how to do it right from scratch. So I'm going to not select anything, and instead I want to click on cancel. So now for the next few minutes, I want us to concentrate on the right side, which is the project browser. So again, I want to rename my model to the name of my project, which is online banking. Now, ideally, you would, I can't stress this enough. You would either have a requirements model wherein you end up writing your FRD, or you would have a use case model wherein you would end up writing your use cases. In this case, we are going to take an approach where we are saying that we'll have requirements as well as use cases. So you see these icons on the top, these are known as packages. So anytime I want to add a folder is referred as a package. So I want to add a package underneath online banking. I'm going to give the name of this package as requirements model. The moment I add something, it gets added as a child to online banking. So I'm going to expand this so you can have a better view. If I click on the plus sign, you'll see I have a package here called requirements model. I also want to have another package underneath known as a use case model. Now I want requirements to be on top. I simply can select this, highlight this, and there is an arrow here which I click. It moves it on top of the use case model. Now, what are the different flavors of my requirements? So my requirements can be business rules, functional requirements, and non-functional requirements. So again, every type could be set up as a folder. So I click on the first folder. Now when you see that I'm adding a package underneath a package, I get an option of automatically add a new diagram. I don't want to add any diagrams right now. I just want to set up a basic template. That's what the goal is. So my first package is business rules. So there we go. My next package that I want to add is functional requirements. And my third package is UI requirements. Well, let's be a little bit more structural. So we'll say non-functional requirements. And ideally underneath this non-functional, I'm going to have 4 more packages. The first is UI requirements. So the moment I add a package underneath a package, I see a plus sign which helps me drill down. Then I can add performance requirements. Scalability requirements. And the last one is security requirements. So what I've done now is I have created a basic structure or a template for me to start plugging in the requirements. So now let's assume that we go into a JAT session and we come out of a JAT session and I just have some sample in terms of requirements that we may have collected from the JAT session. So let us assume that these are my functional requirements and these are my business rules. So I want to copy one requirement at a time and I want to start plugging them in. Now, if these are my functional requirements, I highlight this, and anytime I add a requirement or a use case, it gets added as an element. Add element. So I select the type as a requirement. Now in the name, the stereotype of a functional requirement is an FR. So we haven't come across the word stereotype because they were used long back in the tools. So since I'm teaching a tool which was used long back, I would like to introduce what stereotypes are. So requirement stereotype is more in terms of a short form of the name of the requirement. So in this case, we'll say the name of the requirement is, the stereotype is FR, which is a functional requirement. And then I'm just pasting something here for the sake of writing a requirement. However, I want to show you the properties dialog. So when you click on OK, this opens up. Now in the short description, I really don't want this whole thing to be written here, which says system shall allow the user to order checks, which should come actually down here, because this is the description of the requirement. And in the short description, remember the structure of a requirement has to have a number, a requirement has to have a title or the goal, and the description. So this tool allows me to export a requirements document, so I'm not going to add numbers in there. However, I would want to add the description, and I would want to have the goal and the title. So if my description says allow users to order checks online, my short description or the goal would be allow check ordering, and then I click on OK. And basically, if anybody wants to read the requirement, they double click on this and it gives a complete detail of what this requirement is. Similarly, just to have a good set of inventory in, we will add the other requirements. So I might be muted for the next few minutes. And you can see me adding the other requirements. Weird. It is not getting copied. System shall allow the user to transfer funds internally. Huh. All right, so we have the next requirement. Now we would copy the third requirement if it allows me to copy. We'll see. All right, so the third requirement is system shall allow the user to view account history for the past 30 days. The fourth requirement is being able to export account history in an Excel spreadsheet. System shall allow the user to export account history in an Excel spreadsheet. System shall allow the user to select check design. System shall allow the user to select check design. Next requirement is schedule current day transfer. System shall allow the user to schedule current day transfer. We'll add a next requirement, schedule future transfer. See, now by mistake I entered this under business rules. So if at all, if I do that, it's no big deal. I can simply drag and drop underneath the right folder, and I could just move the requirements in between the folders or the packages. The reason I'm writing a few requirements and I'm being repetitive is at the end of this exercise, this tool allows me to generate a requirements document. So I just want to add a couple of requirements in there. So when we export the requirements document, it makes some sense and we can see some data on it. System shall allow the user to select the info that needs to be displayed on the check. So again, right click, add element, select info. System shall allow the user to apply for a check card. System shall allow the user to print the checks that have cleared the account. System shall allow the user to edit the following personal details: phone number, email address, secondary phone number, and this could be primary phone number. Alright, so like this, you can keep adding as many functional requirements as you would want. And then you can also start adding the business rules. So the first rule is only customers with checking account can order checks. So again, I'm going to do the same thing, add element, order check restriction is the title. And now this no longer is a FR, this becomes a BR. And I'm going to say only customers with a checking account can order checks. The second rule is maximum transfer amount per day is $10,000. So I'm going to do the same again. Maximum transfer amount BR. Maximum amount that can be transferred in a single business day is $10,000. A fee of $5 is charged if the selected check design falls in category sports. Add element. Premium design fee. Premium design fee of $5 per check order will be charged if the category of the selected check design is sports. Check order limitation. A check order can have the following check quantity range. Minimum order 100 checks, maximum order 1000 checks, and so on. So like this, you can keep adding your rules, requirements, UI requirements. The technical team can keep adding the performance, scalability, and security requirements. If you want to see anything, you can always click this and you should be able to see the details. Now, assuming that we are only writing requirements, I can select this requirements package and I can export the data into a requirements document. So let us see how to do that. So I go to project, I go to documentation, and I say I want to select a rich text format report. So by default, it highlights the requirements model because that is what I had selected. Output to file. So I just want to give the name of this file as FRD online banking. Now this has templates that I can select. So if I want to have a requirements template, there is an option of a requirements template here. So I select the requirements template. And when I click on generate, it exports the data into a Word document. And where did this saved? It got saved on my desktop. So this is the requirements document that got generated. So we have the hierarchy of requirements model. The first is we have business rules. This is the title, this is the stereotype, and this is the description. So we have all the rules, and now we have the requirements. And like this, we can keep adding what many requirements we want. And it would just export that in the format of a requirements document, which could be used by the team. When we go down, we have blank packages because we haven't yet added the requirements. So this is how you end up adding your requirements in Enterprise Architect. Again, it's a tool which is highly optional. Not many people are using it. You may not need to ever use it again. So now I'm done talking about the requirements model. Now let's talk about the use case model. So when we talk of use cases, we are going to stick to the same online banking example where we have three modules: my accounts management, my funds management, and checks management. So underneath the use case model, I want to create three packages. My first package is accounts management. My second package is funds management. And my third package is checks management. Now, for each of the modules, since this is my use case model, I have my use cases. So again, if I'm adding a requirement or if I'm adding a use case, I am always going to add them as an element. So I do a right click, I add an element. Now the type no longer is a requirement. The type I have is a use case. And the name of my use case is new user registration. And the stereotype I have is a UC. I don't want to open my properties right now, so I'm going to uncheck this box and I click on OK. So the moment I click on OK, you see I got a use case icon here because that is the element icon prescribed by the UML. So I'm going to quickly add the other use cases I have for accounts management. Alright, so that's my accounts management. I'll add some elements for my checks management. And then I'm going to add elements in terms of use cases for funds management. All right. So now this tool allows me the capability of entering my use cases right inside the tool. So let's say I want to write the entire use case login inside the tool. I can start here. Let's say my use case number is 2.00. So I'm going to say 2.00 space login. What are the other things you have in a use case? So you have primary actor. So in this case, my primary actor is registered online user. My use case story is this use case enables the user to log in and access the account online. So I have my use case name, I have my use case number, I have my primary actor. I'm going to bold the actors, and then the next I have is I have my trigger, I have my precondition, I have my post condition. There is a tab called constraints, and when you go in constraints, you'll see the option of precondition and post condition. So before we go to the constraints tab, we still want to add a trigger. So the trigger to the use case is user enters user ID, and that's what initiates the use case. I then go to constraints, my precondition. What is my precondition? My first precondition is user is a registered online user. I click on save. My second precondition is user account is active. In parentheses, I meant not locked. I save. I then want post condition. User is able to log in successfully and is viewing account summary page. So I have my preconditions, I have my post conditions. And now the only thing that remains are my flows, my primary flows, my alternate flows, my exception flows. So for that, I want to go into scenarios. Now, when you look at the options of scenarios, alternate, basic, simple, not too happy. So this is an editable text box. So I can simply enter primary flow. Now every flow has a title. So the title here is user is able to log in successfully. And this is where I'm going to write down the steps. So my first is user enters user ID. Step number 2, user clicks continue button. Step number 3, system validates the user ID. If valid, go to next step. Else, go to AF1. Step number 4, system displays password page. Step number 5, user enters password. Step number 6, user clicks login button. Step number 7, system validates password. If valid, go to next step. Else, go to AF2. Step number 8, system logs in the user and displays account summary page, and you click as save. So what you've done is you've just saved your primary flow. Now if you want to type the alternate flow, you click on new and this becomes AF1 and your title is invalid user ID. Step 1, system notifies the user of invalid user ID. Step number 2, go to step 1 of primary flow. Save, new. I now want to do AF2. The title of my AF2 is invalid password. Step number 1, system calculates password failure count. If password failure count is less than 3, go to next step. Else, go to EF1. Step number 2, system notifies user of invalid password. Step number 3, go to step 5 of primary flow. So this is my AF2, and my last flow here is exception flow 1. Title, password failure count equals 3. System locks the account and notifies the user to contact customer service associate. Save. So what we've done is we've added all the entire use case data into the tool. And eventually, like the way we exported our requirements into a Word document, this tool also allows me to export my use cases on a Word document. Now, one thing we can do before we close this window is I want these flows to be arranged in the right order. So on the top, I want my primary flow. So I select my primary flow and I have an option of moving it onto the top. Then I want my AF1, I then want AF2, and then I want my EF1. I click on apply, I click on OK. So if I have to see what the use case is about, I can simply click on it. I have my use case name, use case number, primary actor, use case story, trigger. In my constraints, I have my precondition, postcondition. In my scenarios, if I click on it, I can see my primary flow, my alternate flow 1, alternate flow 2, exception flow. So like this, I would end up entering all the requirements, all the steps of my use case in this. Now, this is a great opportunity for me to clarify the concepts of UML diagrams as well. So if I had to create my use case diagrams for this, ideally, I would end up creating 3 use case diagrams, one for accounts management, one for checks management, one for funds management. So let us see how to create a use case diagram. So now I would be creating my diagrams for the entire module here. So I would go to the accounts management folder or the package. I would do a right click. I'm going to say add and add a diagram. Now, if you recall the classification of my UML diagrams, we have behavioral diagrams and we have structural diagrams. The diagrams that we create from a BA's perspective, we create use case diagrams, we create activity diagrams, and we may create state diagrams. And all these diagrams are a part of behavioral diagrams. So I select the UML behavioral and I want to select the use case and I click on OK. So what it does is it adds here accounts management. I want to be a little bit more specific, so I can do a right click and I can go to the properties of this and I want to give the name as accounts management use case diagram. So it's pretty clear as to what I'm doing here. Now you would realize that on the left side are my elements of a use case diagram. I have my actor, I have my use case, I have my boundaries, and I have my extend arrow and uses arrow. So the very first thing I want to do here is I want to end up creating a boundary. So I go to boundary and I add a boundary. In this case, pretty apparent, the name of my boundary is going to be accounts management. Click on OK. I want to expand the height and width of my boundary. Now, ideally, if I had not created this use cases, I could have added my use cases from here. Now, look at it, what will happen. The moment I add a use case here, I want you to keep an eye on the project browser underneath accounts management. And let's say I'm adding the name of my use case is test. I added a use case, and this use case gets added over here as well. So I don't want to be creating duplicate use cases since I've already added my use cases. So I'm going to delete the use case from here. So I rather want to just reuse the use cases I've created so that I can manage the same instance throughout my project and I don't end up creating duplicates. So I'll drag one use case at a time. So the first time I do this, I'm going to get a pop-up. And I want to make sure that I want to connect as a simple link. And I'm going to check this checkbox so I don't get this pop-up every time I do a drag and drop. That's my first use case, my second use case, my third use case, my fourth use case. So I've added my 4 use cases. Now I have 2 actors here. My first actor is unregistered bank customer, and my second actor is registered online user. Now the actor for my use case new user registration is unregistered bank customer. So the moment I do a left click on the actor, I get to see an arrow on the top right hand corner. I simply drag that arrow inside and I select the option of association. So that ends up connecting the actor to the use case. I now want to connect registered online user with the remaining 3 use cases. So again, I do a left click on the top, I drag it inside, and I select the option of association. Like this, I want to make connection with the remaining 2 use cases. So what I've done here, I've associated my actors with the use cases. The next thing that could be done is I can now connect and show relationships. What can I have relationships between? I can have relationships between my use cases. Now, in this case, ideally, there's no relationship that exists between use cases. But let us, for the sake of creating one, assume that login uses new user registration. Added profile uses new user registration. So there's 2 ways of creating the same arrow. The first way is you get the use arrow from here and you connect an arrow from this to that use case, and that would end up creating a users relationship. For some reason it's not showing me. I'm going to delete this connector. The better way is I do a right click, I get this arrow, I drag it inside, and I say what kind of relationship I want. I want an includes or the users. It's the same relationship. So I say includes, it creates an includes relationship. The other way is I select the arrow and I create the arrow and it creates that relationship. So there are 2 ways of doing it. The second relationship again, which is not true, but just creating for the sake of creating, is let's say login extends account history. So this is the extend arrow. So if I select this and I connect an arrow, it shows or it connects an extend relationship. The other way I can do that is I do a left click, I get this arrow, I drag it all the way inside, and I select the option of extends. So it creates an extend relationship. So this is how I end up creating a use case diagram. So again, fairly simple. You can first create a boundary, you can add use cases, and then you can add actors, and you end up creating a use case diagram. Another thing that this tool allows you to do is it also allows you to create an activity diagram. So now again, clearing the concepts, if I had to create activity diagrams here, I could have created an activity diagram, one for each use case. Because what is an activity diagram? It's nothing but the workflow. So for every use case that I have here, I could have created an activity diagram. So if I had to create an activity diagram, I would go to the use case on the project browser for which I want to create one. I would do a right click. I would say I want to add, and I want to add a diagram. What kind of diagram I want? Within my behavioral, I want to add an activity diagram. And the moment I click on OK, I would get a diagram added underneath. I have a space here where I can create my diagram, and this is where I have my toolboxes. Again, I can rename this to make sure that we can see this loud and clear. So I'm going to say login activity diagram. And now I can start creating my diagram in this space. So what is the very first thing we can do to create the diagram? The first thing is we want to create a start point. So if you see here, initial is my start point, final is my end point, an activity is an activity, a decision is the decision box, a fork or a join is the fork or the synchronization bar. So the very first thing I want to do is I want to create a start point. So I select the start point, I put it on the dot on the center, and the properties of this says it's activity initial. I don't want to have any name. I just want to have a black dot. So that's what it is. I'm going to reduce the width of my project browser because I'm creating this diagram which would end up taking us the space. So I'm just trying to make it dock and reducing the width. So anytime I start drawing my diagram, a good practice is I always want to start drawing it from the top in the center of the screen. Underneath the start point, I want to add an activity. I'm going to convert our use case into the diagram, into the activity diagram. So my first activity is user enters user ID. I click on OK. I add that here. I do a left click. I get this arrow. I move it down. I select the option of a control flow. Now you may see that it's not properly aligned. We don't really have to worry because I'm going to show you how to auto align this. Underneath this activity, I want to add another activity which says user clicks login button. So I drag it here and then I connect that with a control flow. Underneath that, another activity, system validates user ID. I'm going to keep it here, connect that with a control flow. And then I want to add a decision. And the question I ask in the decision is the user ID valid? I drag the text to the right. I connect control flow. So now since we have a couple of elements, I just want to show you how to keep aligning this as you move on. So you want to select the elements that you want to align. You want to make sure each of the elements have been highlighted. Now I want to align everything else with respect to my start point. So I take my mouse, I take my cursor on the center of my start point. I'm going to do a right click. I'm going to say align centers, and I want to align them vertically. So they just get aligned vertically. So you want to keep on aligning this every few minutes you are working. So the diagram remains neat and you can see what you are working on. So is the user ID valid? Underneath that, again, I'm going to add an activity. The yes scenario says system displays password page. All right, so moving this. Now the arrow that comes out of the decision is a yes scenario. So in order for you to put that, you type in a yes, you double click on the arrow, and in the name you type in a yes, and it's going to show you outside. Underneath system displays the password page. We'll add another activity which says user enters password. Click on OK, and you want to connect this with user enters password. Put another activity underneath that says user clicks login button. Connect this again, and after which you get a decision in which you want to ask the question, is the password valid? Again, you move the text to the left of the decision, connect that with a control flow, and about time we can again align the diagram. Right click, align centers, align vertically. Move this a little bit up to save some space. And then if yes, outside the decision, I have system logs in the user and displays account summary page. And I connect the control flow. And this is a yes scenario. And the last thing I want in my primary flow is I want to put an endpoint. So it says activity final. I need nothing. I want a blank dot. Click on OK and connect with the control flow. Again, I want to align this. You can do another thing. If you select everything, there is an option of space evenly and you could do so. So it's going to just space everything evenly so it looks neat. So what we've done is we've just gone through the primary flow. We can now start adding the alternate flow and the exception flow. So my alternate flow one is system notifies the user of invalid user ID. Connect this here. I connect control flow. Want to align this two properly. So align centers horizontally. And now I want to connect this control flow. If I want to make it 90 degrees, I do a right click. I want to insert a band in the line. So I insert this band and I make it 90 degrees. And this is the no scenario. Now I go down. Is the password valid? If it's not valid, so this decision box is going to check, is the password failure count less than 3? And I'm going to keep it on the right. I'm going to move it. This is the no scenario, and I am going to align this to and then the options are system notifies the user of invalid password. I connect here control flow. This is the yes scenario, and I want to connect this to user enters password. I can move this on the top. I can align this two to match vertically. I can align this two to match horizontally. This is the yes scenario, and I'll have another activity where system locks account. I click on OK, and I connect here with a control flow. This is the no scenario. I want to align this vertically. I connect this with a control flow, and I want to align this horizontally. So this completes my activity diagram. And what this tool also allows me to do is I could also generate a use case document. So again, do the same thing. I select the package. So I want to now highlight the use case model. I go to project. I go to documentation. and I can select rich text format report. Now my model is a use case model. Now my output file, I want my output file to be use case document. My template is no longer a requirements template. I want a use case scenario template. I click on generate. And I could also view it right from here. And I get to get this report on my use case name, my primary flows, my alternate flows, my exception flows. There is another template I could have done, which is project documentation, rich text format report. Another documentation is a use case template I could generate. And I can also view it here. So it has a much more structured template. It has my use case models and my primary flows and alternate flows. So this is the tool called Enterprise Architect. Again, it's a very optional thing. I really don't expect you to be using it in today's world, but nonetheless, good to know. So I hope this video helps you understand another requirements modeling tool. Thank you.